is time to engage. Welcome, welcome. We are talking once again this week only about Discovery. This is episode 212, titled Through the Valley of Shadows. So, obviously, we deal with some difficult, life-altering, Pike-altering things in this, but really this episode has three storylines happening in it. We've got Pike dealing with time, his future, and what fate we all know awaits him. And it's also got this story about control and Michael Burnham, of course, and Spock off on this sort of away mission. And then it's got this fun little, camaraderie storyline that's still going through with Reno and Culber. And so we're going to talk about all three of these, but let's start with Pike. Because this is steeped lore that we're getting to see now. Yeah. And so, Vanya, how did you feel about getting to actually see the accident?
I felt that it was satisfying because we only ever have them talk about it, and you get to see. We know that Pike's heroic and that he's made sacrifice and he's willing to make sacrifice, and it actually connects to the fact that he wasn't part of the Klingon War, and the Enterprise was left out, but he continues to try and make up for that in a way, and I think that's what is happening when he did what he did. And it was kind of satisfying to see. I also thought it was kind of cool to have that little gift to fans of the original series where you get to see him in the wheelchair and you get to hear the sound and you can anticipate what it's going to be. And so I thought it was cool and tragic and sad and I was satisfied with his journey there, his internal struggle.
Sonia, what did you think about Anson Mount actually going through the motions of the accident? How did it make you feel?
I enjoyed watching Anson Mount. I enjoyed watching him go through that character. Except for one little thing, and I'll get to that at the end. I was surprised that this accident that happens to Pike, which is a really big moment in the history of Star Trek, and a really big moment for us here in Discovery, was through a training exercise. But I thought they could have done something a little bit more lofty, a little bit with a little more significance. But maybe it wouldn't have made a difference. I don't know. I was just surprised that it was a training exercise.
It's kind of interesting that this legendary character goes down in a training exercise. Yes. When you've got a character like Kirk, who is defined by the way he overcame a training exercise. They're very interesting foils for one another. The Kobayashi Maru and this J-class busted ship that Pike shows up and saves some cadets.
Yeah, I just felt there wasn't enough there it wasn't enough to show how heroic he is, and it really, when Kirk does tricks everybody else and beats the Kobayashi Maru, that's impressive. Yeah. I just didn't feel this was impressive enough for Pike. I think Pike is more impressive than what the exercise, than the accident that scarred him. And I did really love the moment when he sees himself, and that was gruesome. It was fantastic. Gruesome but fantastic. There's only one little thing that I didn't love. No pun intended. When he talks about why he committed to Star Trek, when he talks about being a Star Trek captain, I like that he said sacrifice and duty and compassion. I just thought it was weird that he said love. You probably liked it, but I just thought, I don't know, they're always doing this to Pike. I don't know what it is that I want to see from him, because also I would say in the last few episodes, Pike's authority as a Starfleet captain seems to me to have been really diluted. But I think that may be just because we have a series here where Michael Burnham is the lead, and she has to be the one to save the day.
And admirals keep rolling up, and Section 31 keeps rolling up, and this captain who's going to become an admiral and a fleet admiral winds up just being like, all right, I guess I'll apologize to Leland.
Yes, I just feel he's been undercut. His authority's been undercut too many ways. But like I said, it's about we know the series is about Michael. And so Michael has to be the one to be shown to be the smartest, the bravest, and to save the day.
She's Buffy on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Yeah, and I feel like we got at the end of this episode a really despondent Pike.
Yes.
Like, he now knows this thing is going to happen to him. And so I think the coolest thing about that sacrifice he has is now he knows it's going to happen. That makes him even more of a badass. And so I hope he has that occur in a way that feels more deliberate than that scene. Because watching that scene, it felt like he accidentally was the last person out. And it wasn't directed in a way that made it feel like a heroic, like, Geordi pushing people out before he rolls under the thing. Like, we've seen through really basic 80s and 90s TV how those scenes of rescuing your crew, rescuing the people under your command before saving yourself can come across as a heroic move. And it just kind of felt like, oops, I'm on this side of the wall. And then they called him captain.
I didn't...
Which was funny, right? Because he was wearing an admiral's uniform?
I mean, I'm assuming
everybody was wearing similar uniforms on.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he's definitely Fleet Admiral before he's in the wheelchair, right? Like, he's not just like captain, then he sacrifices himself and gets a massive promotion to Fleet Admiral, where
Don't they talk about... I feel like they might talk about that they give him something else, even though they know that he can't do it. I don't know. I have to go back and watch it.
Oh, like it's some kind of
like a
honorary position
thing. I would say that I think that I think that it's okay that it's like this. I think that he's not flashy. He's not like a Kirk. You know what I mean? It's closer to the way real things kind of could happen. And that happened during a training exercise doesn't really change anything because people are still considered like they win, Purple Hearts and that sort of thing.
Sacrifice is sacrifice.
So yeah, exactly. And so I feel like that he's the kind of person where they're kind of taking away that like ultra overly like machismo quality that Kirk had. You know what I mean? Where he could be like the captain who, he pins on love as one of his key components to how he sees his work. And I like that about Pike. And
he does still have that connection to Vina on Talos. Yeah. So we've got that love is an important thing to this character. And I feel like we've really divorced the character of Pike from the menagerie in the cage to Anson Mount. Like, he is a cowboy at the beginning of Discovery Season 2. He's awesome. His sort of hit it. Like, he's just having a great time as a captain, even though, all sentient life now was, like, hanging in the balance, and he's in charge of something so important, but he's still having a good time. And we're sort of seeing him broken down as the season goes on, almost making him back into that captain he was at the beginning of the first time we ever see him.
Yeah.
Where he's not sure he wants to keep being a captain. Yeah. It's taking a real toll on him. He's losing, he's losing his verve for Starfleet.
Well, we know that he has that side. Even if we see the side that is like the rambunctious kind of captain, we know that it's built into him to have that like kind of despair, and
maybe we'll find out that Pike suffers from depression.
I mean, he carries a lot of burdens, and I feel like he does it in a way that's not like Kirk. You know what I mean? Where it's not just about like he doesn't have that straight up cowboy mentality. He can't like kind of take the kinds of risks
that
Kirk is willing to take, which it can be easily argued that is irresponsible to everybody else around him.
Yes,
and can hurt people. He's like, I would say Pike is more akin to somebody like Janeway, for instance, who I feel like because she's a woman, it's okay for her if she had made that speech and she had pinned love on the end of it, then I don't think anybody would blink an eye. You know what I mean? But and that level of emotion. You know what I mean? I don't think that anybody would blink an eye.
But if Picard had said it, we would have been like...
No, I wouldn't have liked... I don't... It's because...
No, I'm not saying you specifically. Yeah. I'm just talking about in general. I really... Not you specifically. But I'm saying, like, in general, I feel like, we look at characters in... it's women that always have to have, like, love. you know.
Like
even
Wonder
like
Woman is the one who's
is about love, and women aren't often driven by like loyalty and honor that men are driven up to be heroes, you know. So it's kind of nice to have like a male character who's the one in charge, be able to have that kind of,
especially now that Saru gets to be the cowboy. Like he's getting a little bit nuts, which is pretty fun.
Yeah, I don't think they need to keep telling us that he went through this thing in order for him to make these decisions. I feel like he could just make these decisions.
That's who he is now.
Yeah, and we know because we assume that we've been watching this season and not coming in as particularly if you're not going to have it be episodic and you're going to have it be serialized.
This is not network TV.
That means we're all watching it. That means you don't have to keep saying that he went through that.
Yeah, like, or put it like previously on and just put it in there so you're not making really clumsy scenes.
Yeah, exactly. And just tighten up that dialogue there. Like, he doesn't need to say that. No. He just has to make those decisions. And she can react in a way that she's like, oh, I see. But she doesn't they don't have to talk about it.
No.
Yeah.
Now, when Pike was on that planet and we get to see the Kyber crystals, the time crystals again. Sorry, what science fantasy show is this again?
Or is it like, it's reminding me of like Last Crusade, the bridge, you know?
Or the Star Wars movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, where they're in Mustafar. Yeah. So, after they ripped off everybody's design elements to land on this planet with just Pike, and everyone is really kind to a human. Oh, like weirdly kind for Klingons in general, but for Klingons who like do not allow anyone to escape with a time crystal without paying a price, like they're real nice.
Well, maybe because he's like L'Rell
like primed them,
and also because of Ash is kind of human, and you know what I mean. And he was already there like 3 months ago.
Yeah,
he was just there 3 months ago to drop
Although
off
I
that
guess
baby.
for what was his name? Tanavik?
Yeah.
For Tanavik, who sounds more Vulcan than Klingon, but for Tanavik, it would have been a lifetime ago for him.
Yeah, but he's like, yeah, my dad's kind of like human. You know what I mean? So I'm good with it, you know? And he seems like he's in charge.
He is, for some reason, in charge. But with his, like, Mimbari headpiece, like...
It's genetic. Like, I feel like, you know, Vogue had that, like, what do you call it? I don't know, gumption.
Yeah.
To be like in charge, where even when he wasn't supposed to be necessarily, and so maybe it's like runs in the family.
But thankfully, some genetics have changed, which is where you can actually see some of his face,
and you can understand him.
You can hear him speak. Yeah, like it's like we're there. No matter how hard Discovery tries to screw up Star Trek, we keep yelling at them about it, and they're like, okay, fine, now they have hair. Okay, fine, now there's less dental appliance. Okay, fine, now you can understand an actor. But I've got to say, as much as we're able to understand Tanavik, there were some points specifically with Ash in this episode where he just mumbled his lines.
Yes!
I'm just going to call up Chancellor L'Rell and see what she's up to. And it's like... enunciate.
Yeah,
this is melodrama.
That's why I was about to say I love when he speaks Klingon because that's awesome.
Yeah,
it's so clear and it's so cool when he's like yelling in Klingon. I'm like, wow, you have that down. Do that with English.
It's a bit like it's a bit like Jason Momoa, where when that guy speaks English, it's just marbles. But when he speaks Dothraki, you're like, I'm here for this. So yeah, you know, I feel like we need to have as much enunciation that goes into him speaking Klingon into English, because he's not really hitting his lines very well. It's
just when he's like his regular lines, I feel like need to be a hit harder. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't know if he doesn't have like the same sort of
training
or energy behind what he has to say. Yeah. Like maybe, you know.
Because, I mean, he went through a lot of vocal coaching with people to speak Klingon like that.
And it's great.
And there's, like, no vocal coaches for English. Because he really needs to, like, deliver... This is not a CW children's show. Like, this is a show where grown-ups are watching it. And we're expecting it to be enunciated in the future when we're all better.
When I say he's speaking Klingon, like, he's a savant. Like, speaking Klingon. Like, that, it's some of the best Klingon
they've really
I've
invented
heard.
A new pronunciation of Klingon for this
show.
Kalish. Yeah, and which, I don't know, maybe Klingon changes as time goes on, because the idea of Kalis, or maybe he's just got, like, Sean Connery. Maybe he's got a lateral lisp.
I actually don't mind that, like, the pronunciation of certain, like, within Klingon. Like, I don't mind that so much. It's just like the enunciation, especially when they're speaking in English.
With all those teeth.
With all the teeth, yeah. So, but, I mean, like...
Michael Dorn sounds great.
Yeah.
And they've had this figured out since, like, day one of TNG, how to speak. But it was nice to see Tenavik wearing less makeup so that as he acted, you could see his face. And then when we go back to L'Rell and she's wearing, like, 2 inches of sponge everywhere, and when she talks, you see the sponge creases. It's like, guys... This is terrible makeup work. And objectively bad.
I feel like it's not fair to the actors.
No.
It's actually, and not, like, the makeup artist, everybody just needs to, like, just scale back, you know? Just pull it back.
Yeah, now
You're
that
so close.
Now
You're
that
so
we're done.
close.
Yeah, now that we're done with this dumb Vocus Tyler hiding that was in the first season, you can just, like, we'll quietly be okay if you fix L'Rell's face. I will not complain if you fix L'Rell's face. I will compliment you.
I will quietly, we're held hostage.
Yeah.
We'll quietly be okay.
Please,
It's adorable.
please. It feels a bit like a hostage situation sometimes. Sonia, what did you think about the fact that, like, Ash and Michael are, like, really emotional and tender to each other in this episode? And these were people who, like, 3 episodes ago sort of hated each other, and then an episode ago were, like, making out a bit. Like, does this feel like a through line to you, or does this feel like every writer is just coming up with a new dynamic for these characters?
No, it's not outrageous or unreasonable to think that they would have gotten over their whatever. They can get past certain differences, and you know, a lot of Michael's reactions to him a few episodes ago were based on anger and fear
of other things.
Mm-hmm. But I found the dialogue in their scenes to be really lacking, really lame. Actually, I wish that, like, lazy, the cliche,
or like stunted, like.
Oh, I had no,
like,
Ash, I had no idea. Well, of course you didn't. Why did they give her that line to say?
Yeah.
They could have tightened it up. They could have made that scene more powerful. I feel like they threw away that scene. And I also find that Ash, maybe it works this way. I don't know, but I find him. I wish that he was a little more complex. Yeah. Right? He's not as...
For a guy who's 2 guys, he's super basic.
Yes.
Like, the most basic.
Yeah, I mean, Culber is, like, almost is kind of 2 people, but I feel like
far more interesting to watch.
Yeah, has way more depth and has less to say. And less scenes.
And you know what? Let's talk a bit about Culber, because Culber had some really great scenes with Reno, and so did Stamets. And the first thing that I found a little bit strange was in the mess hall when we're, like, having one of these 10 forward sort of moments, or like a Neelix's restaurant kind of vibe. Absolutely every member of the bridge crew was there.
Yes, that's true. I hadn't even thought of that.
Is it just Saru on there with a bunch of strangers? They brought in blonde, no makeup Ariam to be like, I'm a buddy now.
We've seen Data on the bridge by himself, like at night. You know what I mean? Like, nobody else is there. So
But
maybe they're just eating at a weird time.
Like, it's a high-stakes situation where you're being chased by an enemy AI.
I was okay with that.
And everyone's having lunch at the same time. It
Yeah,
just
it's
seems
true.
a bit weird.
I have worked at offices where I couldn't go to lunch with my friends because, like,
because you
just
were
an
so
office.
essential.
Yeah, no, because it's just like, you can't be both leaving here at the same time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it was
That's
a little
true.
weird to have that happening and such a, like, jovial time when it's like, fate of all humanoid life is at stake, and it's like, hey man, let's talk about
stuff like that
lunch.
even on Deep Space Nine, where they're all like at Quarks, and they're like, there's so many of them at Quarks, and the universe hangs in the balance, and they're just hanging out.
But is it always? But is it everybody?
Rarely.
That's. I mean, there are 2 captains. They're the only ones who are not there. Everybody else is just on lunch break.
Although I remember once when Worf was first introduced to Dax.
Yeah, and they're all at Quarks.
They had just come out from a holosuite. Dax and my girl,
Kira. They were in the princess outfits, and then Bashir and O'Brien were there, and everybody was
And
like,
was this in the middle of a Dominion attack?
I don't know what it was.
It could have been.
Well,
it could have been because
Like they were the Dominion literally breathing down their neck. That's the thing I find strange about this joke. I like the scene. I'm glad the scene exists. This scene should not have happened here at this. This should have happened some other frigging time, some other way. This is the wheel being cranked, the throat being jammed. Like it's just not an organic moment for it.
Because they're trying to create these like it's weird because they keep pushing Burnham as like the main thing, and then they keep trying to give us like ensemble moments so that we like these people, so that we get used to them, and then they keep leaving the ship. You know what I mean? And then having them do these things at awkward times, as you say, because they have to like squeeze it in. I mean, there's not a lot of episodes left for us to be like, oh, this is a team that all works together.
And the thing about this being a huge story arc is that it's going to be like low stakes at the beginning and then super high stakes in this part. We're in episode 12 of 14. Like, this is when the high stakes happen. Yeah. This is not the time for you to just drop in some fun, like, lunchtime banter.
They need to eat.
It was also obvious that it was just a tool to have the moment to focus on Stamets and Culber and Reno. So they could have, to your point, Matt, they could have had maybe only a couple of bridge staff on, and the rest, like that's only it. Three of them sitting at the table. It would have been just as effective to see Stamets quiet with two people convincing, as opposed to eight people convincing,
or with just him and extras in the background. Like it felt like they were cramming in an opportunity to try to get to like some characters, and this should have happened months ago.
But we already liked them. Where the hell was Tilly?
This was a very Tilly-free episode, although she did. The actress Wiseman got married at some point in this season, so it might be that she was getting married or something. During this.
Like a lot of them were at that wedding though. So I mean,
so she might have been honeymooning.
Because Wilson Cruz was at that wedding.
Yeah, it was very obvious that there was not much Tilly in this episode, and there wasn't a whole lot of her last time.
Right. I mean, I feel like she's so like a comic relief character at this point. Well, they've made her that. That there's really no room for it apparently, but when they're lunching, I mean, that's a great time.
Oh yeah, Tilly wasn't invited to lunch. Oh, Tilly.
Well, she's working. Yeah. Like she's like one of the people
she was working.
It's just Tilly and Saru and Pike on deck. That's it. So let's talk about Burnham and Spock's away mission.
Okay.
And the fact that they went after a Section 31 ship, which I kind of got the impression that it was the same Section 31 ship as Leland's. And then partway through I realized, oh no, this can't be, because Leland's not here. What ship is this? Then there's 30 more of them later. Like, it wasn't clear going into it that this was not the same Section 31 ship.
Oh, it was to me.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why.
I didn't get, and I think maybe it's because we weren't told that there was a fleet of Section 31 ships and they all looked the same. So when I saw this one ship that looked like this, I was like, okay, that ship. And oh no, all these people from that one ship have been ejected.
I'm saying that I knew, but not for any particular reason.
Okay.
I probably just guessed.
Fair enough.
Because
I assumed for the same reason.
Yeah, but not because they gave me a real clear indication.
Yeah, or because there's like a registry mark or a name or all the hallmarks of what makes a ship in Star Trek. So you can tell this Excelsior from that Excelsior, this Galaxy class from that Galaxy class.
But I guess they don't want that with Section 31?
I mean, you paint them in some way to tell them apart. Otherwise, you like... In a situation like this, where there's a robot who's taken over your Section 31 ship, it would be good to know which one might be the evil Section 31 ship.
So the robot is on all the ships. It is on more than one ship, in other words.
It seems like there's a new Terminator on every ship.
Yes, because if, let's say, it sounds reasonable to think that this is not Leland's ship. Also because Georgiou didn't show up at some point. She's chasing him. Okay, so how could they have gotten to that Leland ship before Georgiou did?
I guess that ruins our theory that there's 31 ships in Section 31.
There are 31, right? Because that one was destroyed.
Georgiou is on a Section 31 ship, no?
No.
Or she's on something else.
Well, she's trying to catch Leland's ship, right?
Oh, okay, but what is she on?
Well, she couldn't have been on the Section 31 ship because Leland took off on the
so
Section
31. Okay,
so maybe she's on a shuttle. She's on some kind of shuttle.
Oh,
do they go as fast?
That would have been some useful information for us to have, since there's a lot of spinning plates right now, and the fact that we don't know what ship she's on and where she's going is just like bad table setting.
I did like that Saru was like, listen, Michael, we're not going to take the thing he wants to him.
Yeah.
You know, which is us. We're not going to, like, serve it to him on a plate. I was like, yeah. You know, because really, you guys kind of screwed it up in the first place when you took mom off her duties.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, you
that
know,
was
ripping her.
Just terrible. A terrible strategy.
She
from
does
the beginning.
admit, like, oh, we screwed up. Like, she does say, like, we took her away when she talks to Amanda. But I'm like, yeah, guys, that was a big screw up.
And you know what?
Like,
it's
she's
such
like
a big deal.
the caretaker of the universe, and you just
You just like defanged her.
Yeah.
And also, she lost her mother again. So sad, such a tragedy. But we don't even get to see Michael react to that. There's no time. There's only 3 episodes after that.
I feel like this season had some real wasted episodes.
Yeah.
And this entire storyline could have been like shaken up and put into these 14 episodes in a much more organic way. Because things are moving real fast. In fact, let's talk about this Section 31 mission that they went on today.
Yeah.
They you know, met this guy that you would never remember from the first 2 episodes of Discovery in the first season. And then this guy is the only survivor. And it seems like the nanobots are doing a better job of acting like a human than the last time. Like
They've learned.
The Cylons are, you know, improving.
Yeah. Because they look like us
Leland
now.
was like, yeah. Because Leland was like very much Data. He was just behaving like Data.
Yeah.
And then in this one we had the new Terminator, like crying and not
like
sure
giving
he can go
emotion.
back. And so there was some real like growth in the AI.
So
and its ability to convince us.
It's updated, but not perfect, because at some point, what do you guys think? What do you think the reason that it stopped trying to act human? Because it didn't have to anymore?
Yeah.
Its voice started to break. Because the nanobot's voice started to break. It's going through puberty.
It's like holding on. It's like holding on.
Yeah, when its monologuing tendencies screwed it again, because the AI just loves to monologue, and when it monologues about its, you know, when it waxes poetic about its belief in itself, it always gives up the game.
Yeah, and it could just get really close to her and just do the thing that it needed to do, but it doesn't. Because it clearly knew that Spock would go, and then it also would know that at some point while Spock was away, it would figure out that Spock would figure out its real identity. But instead of just being like cozying up next to her,
and just like sending a couple of... Because he had this syringe, instead of using the billions of nanobots inside of him, then he tries later with this whatchamacallit, because we need to see through it to know that there are nanobots in there. I just thought this AI is remarkably stupid.
Well,
constantly remarkably stupid.
Well, I want it to be smarter next time. It better be smarter, because it's gotten smarter, but then not smart enough. Yes. So I want it to do some more sneaky behavior. Maybe it doesn't understand sneaking.
Yeah, hasn't figured out. It's figured out crying and fear.
Section 31, which is the sneakiest.
Yeah, if you didn't pick up sneaking from Leland, you're not going to get sneaking. Yeah. Now, I'd like to talk about the fact that we got to see, like, the best double-barreled gun show.
With phasers? We've never... What?
I can't remember that ever happening.
I can't recall phasers ever being used like that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Crazy Picard with his, like, Uzis.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's...
Like, those have been great, but this was the, like, actionist thing I can remember.
So cool.
I love when Michael fights. Yeah.
She's really good at action.
Yeah, she's fighting. She's good. Well, I mean, she came from Walking Dead, where she just fights brainless, like non-humans.
Yeah,
and so she's constantly fighting robots in this, and that's working out okay. And she's not, and she never loses to a robot for some external reason. She makes it after killing some kind of when some robot monster needs to die. And I thought it was interesting how the T-1000 shots kept hitting him, and then the hole in him, the death becomes her hole in him. all those things that are such hallmarks of Terminator movies happening. Yeah. It's getting really Terminator. Like we were joking last episode.
We talked about Skynet. Yeah.
We were joking last episode about how Terminator-y this is, and this is Terminator-ier. It's getting crazy. They're just going to have to name it John Connor in the next episode to be even more Terminator-y. It's weird.
I like Terminator-y.
Right? I'm finding it personally very strange to be watching this.
Yeah, it's strange that they've gone so far like Terminator. I mean, I kind of understand like going Battlestar. You know what I mean? Because Ronald D. Moore is he's created some of the canon in Star Trek. Yeah. So that kind of to me is but to go past Battlestar,
full James Cameron here,
is very strange.
There are some strange choices happening with this, and I'm really curious where we're going to get to next with all of this, and hopefully the Klingon story's done now, because the Klingon-y things that had to happen in episode 3 have now paid off,
right?
And so hopefully that's it, and we don't have any more Klingon stuff to worry about. But it did bother me that the secret place where they hide time crystals is like the famous Kahless monument. And it's like, do Klingons not want to go to the famous Kahless?
Yeah, you would think that it was like Bajor where you go, like there are places where you go.
Like a kind of Mecca.
Worship place. Yeah, like Mecca. And I'm like, Klingons are all about that stuff.
Yeah.
About worship. So it does seem strange that they don't.
Although I do remember, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I do remember Worf and Kira talking about the difference between how the Bajorans think of their prophets and how the Klingons think of their gods. Right. And how the Klingons actually destroyed their gods because they were a problem. Sure. They got in the way. Yeah. So, it seems to me there to be a difference between
because Kahless is a Klingon.
He's
and not a god. So I feel like this would be a kind of pilgrimage that people would be into, and I just think it's.
Except it's.
I think everything about this show is bad at keeping secrets in its internal logic. Like they're bad at making Section 31 a secret place, a secret group, a secret at all, and they're bad at keeping their secret time crystals in a place that would be actually secret. Like everyone knows about this great spot to deliver your babies.
I think you know why, because they're still writing it based on Fuller's. We keep coming back to this because he'll never go away. Because we're still basing on the fact that none of these people should be here. We shouldn't be looking at any of this.
Yeah, the story was done.
It's done, so it would have been wrapped up. You know, to me, I'm like the whole thing, the sphere data being in Discovery. It's like, that's another opportunity to end this and start a new show. You know, like it's really to just destroy
or
Discovery.
Dump the computer core. Yeah. Like I find it strange that coming to the very end of this episode, the idea now is, we have to destroy the Discovery. As opposed to...
we know they're not going to destroy them.
Yeah, I mean, probably not. I mean, it'd be nice, but probably not. Yeah. And I feel like the obvious thing isn't, oh no, the muffler on my car's bad, I'd better blow up my car. It's I should probably get rid of the muffler. Like, it's just the computer. Yeah, they're ripping out holographic elements. Like, these ships are not one thing. Right. These ships are many systems. And the only problem is the computer. So I just find the decision to blow it up a little bit extreme. Yeah. You could transport the computer core into a sun. Like, there are so many pieces of technology that have been developed over 700 episodes of Star Trek.
Yes.
That or 700 hours of it, really. And, like, there are so many solutions that exist. And I can't help but again come back to this where it feels like the people making this show don't watch enough Star Trek. Yeah,
because I would say, too, maybe I'm jaded as somebody who watches lots of TV and watches all of Star Trek. It's so frustrating to go on a cliffhanger that they're going to self-destruct. Because usually on Star Trek, when they're going to self-destruct, they wrap it up in that episode where they don't have to self-destruct. Because we know that in TNG, they're not going to self-destruct in the middle of a season. Yeah. Right? Because they still need to have the rest of the show. There's an episode next week. So it's kind of rude. It's like... don't mess with don't insult me. Yeah. Like, I know you're not going to do it. The show's called Discovery. You're going to destroy Discovery? Really?
I mean, I would like it if they destroyed Discovery and then handed them a new ship that's a Constellation class called
Discovery, like the new, like they've done before with the Enterprise? Yeah. But I feel like...
I mean, you don't even have a captain to give it to. Are you going to make that ship and give it to Saru? It would just be it'd be nice. He's getting a little more captain-y.
I just don't understand what's going to happen, too, with Pike and, like, the fact that he's leaving. And we know probably Spock's he's going to leave, right? When Pike
if Pike leaves, it'll be on the Enterprise, and that's where Spock belongs. Yeah. So, yeah.
Sad. Very sad. I was thinking about something the two of you said offline, about how it doesn't feel like they're part of Starfleet because they seem
Yeah,
to
oh,
they
yeah.
exist. They make decisions.
Yep.
And they exist like
The
they're
universe
a
is-
rogue ship.
The
And then
universe is in the balance,
that's-
and no one else is weighing it. Yeah.
I wonder, so that might have something to do with just the direction that the producers wanted to go, and the fact that it's all about Michael. But maybe it's also because Starfleet is kind of new at this point in the timeline. No, or new? Has it been around 100 years?
It's closer.
The Federation is like about 100 years old.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, Starfleet, I mean, you'd like to think after about 100 years they'd
Yeah.
have to get together.
And
I
also,
would
they're
think
closer to like Kirk,
Yes,
Starfleet, than they are to the beginning of Starfleet.
the Enterprise.
Do you know what I mean? So that like it doesn't seem to make sense that they wouldn't
They wouldn't
be
they would
almost
be
the
so bad
same-
at it.
almost
Yeah.
the same as Kirk's
Yeah.
Enterprise. You know what I mean? They're closer to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's it's just frustrating.
Which I think comes back to the concept of the show, the idea that it takes place in this little pocket that would have been a cool single storyline before events we're familiar with. But now that we're like year after year going back to this time on the Star Trek timeline, that you're running out of stuff to fill it with that's actually high stakes.
But they're also sorry, go on.
I was going to say, but Star Trek never had to be that high stake
At all
like,
time, yeah.
If you're going to make every year of this show, every season of the show into like a world-ending, existential, the Federation hangs in the balance kind of year, it's just getting a
true.
bit nuts.
Yeah, it's
like
gonna
every
get-
now and again, Picard has to just go have a fight in the mud with his brother. Like it has to be a season with just like emotional stakes
Yeah.
because we're getting into stuff that we would have heard about by now. Like, this shit is way too important.
Yeah, exactly. Or smaller stakes within like the ship or like an away mission.
Or shorter stories
Yes, that are
to
like,
give you a reason why all of Starfleet is not involved in this.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
it's the Avengers problem.
Yeah.
After the first Avengers movie, every story that happens to these characters has to be a short story, or else the Avengers are going to show up and help Captain America, or show up and help
they're
like
having,
Thor. They aren't giving you a reason to keep all of Starfleet out of Discovery's business.
Like a Saved by the Bell or like 90210 problem where they're the only students that go to that school. You know what I mean? Like it's like Saved by the Bell. Like Belding is only concerned with that group of students. Like they're having like only. Like Starfleet we don't even know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And this is the cool kids.
It's like Wolf 359 is happening over there, and everybody's busy.
That's right.
Except it's inside out, because Wolf 359 is happening with one ship. Everything hangs in the balance because of this one ship.
And think about it, control has been taken over by AI, and the Admiral who was there a couple of episodes ago saying that control is the thing that keeps Starfleet alive, together, strong.
Yeah.
So how
What's
is
everybody
it
doing?
Yeah, where are they?
Just wandering through the universe, not sure what to do.
Like, why aren't there what about all the other Starfleet ships? Like, can they call them? Like, what's going on? I hope it's going to happen in the last 2 episodes.
I hope. I mean, we've already gotten our Orville episode that gives us the entire fleet kicking butt together.
They all looked exactly the same. But that's neither here nor there. Yeah. They all showed up.
but it's very practical. You can swap those parts out. The Orville knows what they're doing with ship design.
That's true.
I'd like to talk about the fact that everyone knows that there are 7 signals for some reason, but no one knows where the other ones are going to happen. Like, they're constantly talking about how, there's a signal there, let's go to it.
Yeah.
You know where all 7 are, right? Like,
Oh, they do.
They know where they're all going to happen.
Yeah.
So they should just be able to be like, well, these are the 3 that are left. These are the 2 that are left. This is the one that's left.
I was thinking about that too, and I was like, did I forget something? You know, like, did I forget that they already know? Because I was like, I thought they already know, but they were not talking about it in those terms.
They're talking about it like there's a surprise signal that's going to pop
but we
up.
know
and
where they are. We've seen it, right?
Yeah, it's on a map.
But I really, I'm glad you said that, because I really was like questioning my
sanity.
Yeah. I was like, am I getting gaslit by this show? Or you know what I mean?
They're not only is the internal Star Trek logic broken, where you don't beam Ariam onto the ship when she's been ejected into space, where like you're not using the tools at hand, but also your internal season logic is not working.
Yeah.
Because and if Michael is the one who's connected to the signals, right?
Mm-hmm. Michael's connected and Spock has them in his brain. Like it's all.
But I thought that Michael was the variance, the variable.
She
that
still is.
That's what I mean. What did they do with that? That seems to have fallen by the wayside. Yeah.
And again, this is a season that has gone through a lot of showrunners. So maybe there were ideas at the beginning that the new showrunners have just been dropping the ball on. Yeah. I mean, it's Kurtzman, so...
They abandoned the logs again.
Yeah, no more logs.
And logs are great. They're such great for, like,
good narration, man.
They're great for exposition without having to, like, heavy... Like, they're not using it to their advantage, and they're having to throw in heavy dialogue to replace, you know what I mean? You could have, like, Saru. It could be from Saru. You could have it from almost anybody's perspective, even if they're not the main person. So, if he wanted to talk about
Chief Medical Officer's log. Yeah. Like, Chief Other Engineer's log. Like, you'd be able to get into the mindset of some of these characters instead of having to completely repeat yourself when you went through when you lost your Brahai.
I would have loved to have heard Tilly's log after that conversation between Culber, Stamets, and Georgiou.
Yeah.
I would have loved to like that would
But
have
at
been
least
cool.
if like the logs that move the story along. But also another thing that you were saying about the character, like about each season, how it's like if the universe has to hang in the balance. Another thing that's happening is like bringing in new characters like Pike that we know are probably temporary and Spock that are temporary, but giving them so much of taking up so much of the space and so much of the dialogue and so much of the show.
And making us love like Reno.
We're going to love them. Yeah, but then all the people that are there all the time, we get nothing from them. Yeah. They're not contributing in the same way, and they're the ones who are going to be there next season when the other people are probably not. So instead of they're having these moments with Reno and Culber, like in the sick bay, which is like a beautiful scene and really much rooted in Star Trek, I think.
Yeah.
But then, is Reno sticking around? You know what I mean? So we can't like get attached to these characters. They keep wanting us to get attached to these characters, but they're bringing in new characters that we know are temporary and not attaching us to the characters that are already there.
Which they basically did with Ariam. Like, they brought a new actor in to play Ariam, to make us like her some more, and then kill her.
And then they replaced her with somebody who we also don't know.
Yeah.
You know, I want to be able to like this ensemble, like the whole ensemble, even if Burnham is the lead, you know, kind of like a captain on other Star Trek, you know, like we can still have these characters play out these things as opposed to completely new characters.
Well, on the topic of bitching wildly about what's wrong with this show, let's now discuss whether this episode trekked it or wrecked it. Sonia, what do you think?
I'm going to say that it trekked it, even though I did not enjoy it very much as an episode of television. I think it trekked it. It had some of the tropes that we're used to that I enjoy. The away team, coming up against danger and fighting it. It had a character we love, victorious, you know, Michael and those two phasers, a great scene. It had some camaraderie between characters we don't see very often, and I think they used that effectively. And, you know, the whole thing about time, I think that's an interesting scientific concept, even though it's not real. It's interesting. The crystals, I know that they're irritating, but I thought it. Whenever they talk about it, it's not my favorite scientific storyline, but I'm getting used to it. And
it's there now.
It's there now. Yeah, I'm getting used to it, and I liked the way they worked it actually with Captain Pike and Tanavik. So I thought it trekked it, even though as I've said that there was a dialogue that was very lame, and I think they threw away scenes, and some of their performances were hard to, you know, get into. So that's my verdict.
Well, and it's interesting, these time crystals, because they seem to have been in the opening sequence for Discovery since season 1. Like, there's that one moment where you see that time crystal, which was the one that was in Mudd's hand.
Oh, right.
So this dumb idea has been around for the whole show, basically, at this point, and now the whole season is hanging on this ridiculous concept. But yeah, it may not be a very Star Trek thing, but it's a very Star Trek Discovery thing. Vanya, did this episode trek it for you or wreck it for you?
It trekked it.
You sound so happy
because
about that.
I just feel like it had so much potential, this episode. There are a lot of really good things. that I was excited about, and I liked the Pike stuff, but then the fact that I just can't get used to this crew, like, as a working, I mean, they're all at lunch at the same time. Anyway, like, as a working thing, like, that we get used to the characters, that we like these characters that they've, you know, are bringing to life, that they're not fully realized, is really frustrating and not very Star Trek. You know what I mean? That everybody's working together. Well, okay, we know they're doing their jobs. Like, I mean, the ship is being flown and stuff like that, but we're not getting to know them. And I like the away missions too, but it seems like when they leave the ship and they're not dealing with the characters, it's like, it's even worse, you know? Because usually when they're, like, closer knit, like, closer together, then the episodes are better, you know? Or at least when the away missions are streamlined. I like these two away missions. I like them, and I feel like there should only be one of them that happened in.
This episode feels overstuffed, like the Sphere episode. Where it's like, that's a lot of Star Trek-y things happening, and if you did fewer of them, you might do them well.
Yeah, and I think I didn't Trek it the last time they did this, but
they're wearing you down.
Yeah, maybe. Like the time.
It's like, I think partly, and two, like, also there are certain things that are, like, very much. I mean, Spock's there now, and
yeah, but I mean, you could name a dog Spock, and it wouldn't be like Spock's in the show.
And I like that he used science to beat this.
Well, we found out last episode that Spock likes science.
I feel so bad for Ethan. I feel so bad for Ethan Park that he had to deliver that line.
You're so naughty. I
found this hilarious meme of him just grinning like an idiot with "I like science" under it. It's just like like his Matt Damon moment. It's pretty
feel
great.
for you, Ethan.
I like him, but it just every now and again, like most characters on the show, there's something real stupid they're asked to do.
Well, I just don't think that Spock. Well, we went over this, but I don't think Spock needs to tell us that. I think we know he's a scientist. Yeah. Like, he actually refers to himself as a scientist on a regular basis.
Yeah, he's the science officer. If he disliked science, he would be in the wrong vocation. Yeah, I feel like this episode had the same problem of being overstuffed that the Sphere, the Death of the Sphere episode had. Yeah. And I also feel like this episode reminded me of the fact that the very first Star Trek episode ever made was just about Pike. There's some other stuff that happens around it, but really it's just about Pike. And I feel like this season is reminding me that instead of being like Star Trek The Next Generation, or even like Star Trek the original series, it's just like Star Trek The Pilot, where it's only about one guy and that one guy's story. And so this whole show, 2 years of this show, feels like it's all based on the episode that NBC said, no way, this show should never exist. Try it again. And so, sadly enough, I've got to say this show Trekked it, because technically that episode's Star Trek, but it is truly bad Star Trek to the point that it's such bad television it had to be taken to the drawing board and remade. This is Star Trek. This episode Trekked it, but it is bad. It's just bad.
Yeah.
In so many ways. It's got like beautiful moments that happen here and there, but it's like, it feels like the show was made by a first-time feature filmmaker who had never done it before and got a bunch of really cool things right and screwed up so many basic craft elements that you would know if you were good at making a film, or in this case, Star Trek.
Wasn't it a shorter episode again? Like 40...
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like in the high 50s like we've seen some of them.
But I mean, I feel like it could have used that.
Yeah,
yes.
It could have used some
right, like there are times where they've used that time and then there's less story.
Yeah.
But the time when they have so much story, they're like, let's
speed this one up, tighten it.
Which is a strange choice.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, in terms of set design, I cannot enjoy the set design. It's not just the lens flares, Matt. It's too different from what all the Star Treks have looked like. It doesn't make sense that it looks like that exactly, and it's too dark, and these lens flares, and it's too big, and you can't ever imagine that you can see a whole room, for example, or at least that you can see the space where all of the characters are standing. It just feels like I can't get a grip on it. Maybe that's the point. Maybe that's the point. Is that supposed? Maybe they're doing it for that.
I don't know. I mean, this episode was interesting because when Pike went to the Klingon monastery, he was just in a church on King Street. Like, we can hear every now and again you might hear bells ringing on this episode, and it's at the same church. Like, that's where this totally happened. And so every now and again they're on an actual physical set, like the Quarry when they were on Talos 4. And it feels so un-Star Trek-like because I'm used to only ever being on location when it's, fighting a Gorn in the California desert. Like, that's the thing we've seen in the past. And if it's not that, it's on a soundstage. And then that soundstage has its own kind of feel. And every time they go to a soundstage, it feels like the same soundstage. But it's just lit a bit differently, or it's lightning this time, or the sky's red. Like, I feel like we are now doing a kind of Star Trek location shoot that just is very recognizably the greater Toronto area.
Yeah, like New Eden is like, I don't know, like a basement in Cabbage Town. Like, or the Annex. Or something. But
and I'd love to hear from people who don't live in Toronto or see Toronto on screen all the time. Do you find that? Do you feel like the locations feel weird? Or is it just because because we live here? Is that why we feel this way?
Maybe it's because we live here. Matt.
Like, I've literally been to the Quarry that they used for Talos 4.
Just turn up the lights.
A little bit.
Up the lights.
And
give us a little more screen.
Give us more screen.
Like, I do not abide.
Also, they just threw too many different locations in there. It was unnecessary.
This is
this was overstuffed.
Every time they leave that ship, I'm telling you, like, they need more time on Discovery. Think about Star Trek. Like, your main, like, on you can change, you can have it be serialized, but you don't always have to leave. Yeah. Think about it. Like, you look at TNG, I feel like, Deep Space Nine got dinged really hard for not being on a ship. Yes. That new. It's not trekking. It's like, how is it Star Trek if it doesn't trek anywhere? Yeah. But this is like, this should be called Star Trek Away Mission. Like, they're leaving too much.
Yeah, they're rarely on the ship. Oh, on the topic of ships, we had a Klingon D-7 in this one. Like a real Klingon ship.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
That was exciting. I feel like we're just like slowly beating these terrible ideas out of them. The fandom is getting some corrections, some course corrections here. And if only Chancellor Laurel, you can see your face, it might be better.
But I like the originality. Like, there are times where I'm like, okay, there was an episode, I don't know if it was the last episode or the episode before, where I was like, I can't think of anything that is like, I think it was the last episode.
You couldn't think of an episode of Star Trek that was similar.
Like it, but I really liked the episode because I feel like, unlike the Orville, like, it wasn't derivative of something I've already seen. It's brand new work. That's great. I feel like you can still do that and still be true to canon. Yeah. Like, you can do
every other Star Trek was able to do that.
Yeah.
They'd sometimes, regurgitate
a
theme
or
a story.
Like, a little bit.
And I don't mind retcon.
Yeah.
If it fits in, like, there's some... Enterprise is filled with brilliant retcon.
Yeah, because if it actually works. Because if you retcon and then... But then we know that there's a better solution that's already in canon, that's when it sucks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like the retcon of someone like Pike knowing going into when he dies or when he gets disfigured that he's going to get disfigured. That's retroactive continuity.
Yeah.
We didn't know about that before, and now they're telling us that 60 years ago this was a decision he had made, and that informs retroactively the whole character of Pike. Yeah. And that's fascinating and interesting and cool retcon.
And makes him better, makes him more heroic.
Yes.
Like retconning Spock to have dyslexia. Yeah. That's cool retcon. But there's also just not knowing that you're a Star Trek show. And I think it's moments like that where they've already got a piece of technology that would solve this problem and they don't use it. And that to me smacks of the writers have not seen as much Star Trek as the viewers. Because there are a lot of tools that the characters you're writing have. And so you need to know the tools they have or you can't write them.
Yeah, it's strange to create tools or things that were never there before, but then not use the tools that are there.
Yeah.
That's strange. That's a strange.
It's strange. It feels like people want to make a new show.
Yes.
Where they can set the rules, and you can't do that in a show called Star Trek.
Yeah.
And that I think is the fundamental problem with pretty much everything that comes after Enterprise. This idea that it's got new creators, fresh blood, a new vision, but it's taking place in a canon. And if you want to make something else, by all means, like Battlestar Galactica was wicked.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And it didn't have, they were able to rebuild the canon. And I feel like Discovery tried to do that while still saying it is canonical. And you cannot have both, and we're constantly seeing the growing pains of it. We're constantly seeing the, oops, shouldn't have done that. Let's get rid of these dumb-looking ships and bring back these ships you'll recognize. Like, we're seeing these changes happening before our eyes. And I feel like if we go back and watch the first season of Discovery, after, like, season 4 of Discovery, it's going to feel like a totally different show. We're just seeing gradual changes to repair the mistakes of the pilot made by people who did not watch or like Star Trek. And here we are with someone like, Les Moonves, who never understood Star Trek to begin with. He was the guy in charge of saying, yeah, Netflix can pay for some Star Trek, why not? And so it all comes from people who don't get Star Trek. And I think that's why an episode like this happens. It feels kind of like Star Trek, but it's bad TV.
But are we in a time maybe, too, that people don't care about what the canon is and they just want what they want and this is Star Trek to them? That's happening a lot in pop culture too, and can be really frustrating. I mean, especially with something that is as canonical as Star Trek. I suggest that watch some original shows.
Because if you never watched Star Trek, if this is your first experience of Star Trek, you're going to think people like us are idiots and have no this is what everyone's freaking out about.
Yeah,
this is what everyone's
the
crazy
ship looks
about
like
all
this
these
instead
years.
of that.
And,
Who cares?
And it's just because it's bad TV. Because it's because a lot of the episodes are not good episodes.
Yeah.
So they're doing a disservice to Star Trek just by not doing it properly.
It's being torn between so many different goals. It's like it's not network television, yet it's not a bingeable series that's dropped all at once. And it's not the classic version of Star Trek that we saw from TOS through Enterprise, but also it's not a new vision either. It's stuck in between all of these things.
If it was originally like Brian Fuller's vision, then it would have been okay that it was serialized, because then we would never see these people again. It would be one big serialized story about Michael Burnham.
They're also stuck between rock and a hard place there too, where they're not doing they're not doing Fuller's thing, but they're also not doing not Fuller's thing.
Exactly. So if they had done Fuller, if it was like what Fuller wanted, then we'd be like, awesome, a great show about a mutineer in Star Trek. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then we it comes to fruition, and then we find out whatever, I don't know, Lorca's bad or blah blah blah.
And then we close the book, and then season 2 of Discovery would be a different story.
Yeah.
But that is not the world in which we live.
That's what they're trying to squeeze. Like, it's like square peg round hole. That's what they're trying to squeeze it into.
The show was not built to have legs.
But it wasn't designed that way.
Yeah, the show was not built to have legs for multiple seasons. And we're really seeing the places where those shortcomings are now being consistently disappointing.
I think that's why she was connected to Spock, and I think that's why, and I think really what probably would have happened in Fuller's, I imagine, might have been destroyed.
Yeah.
As something that was not even, like, blown off the map because they had too many things happen that were, like, a security risk. And
look what happened to the Glen. It basically destroyed itself. And so it kind of makes sense that season 1 would have ended with some kind of grand sacrifice that the Discovery makes.
Like a Rogue One kind of, like...
Yeah, this is like Rogue One if you decided to make a franchise out of those characters who clearly are designed to die.
Yeah, although they are making a Rogue One show, but they're going back before this,
Which makes a little bit of sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. But I'm just saying they went backwards. And I think Fuller wanted to do a show before Kirk's timeline, because if it was going to be short-lived, you know what I mean? I feel like, okay, we could do like a serialized, one season show before Kirk and give like the little, a little serialized show.
Because there's enough breathing room in that tiny space for these 15 hours of story.
Yeah.
And then they decided, nah, man,
now it's like,
7 years.
Now we're going to, now that it's expanding, it's like they don't know really how to fit all those pieces in.
No, and this Giorgio series is probably going to take place at the same time, which means you now have 2 series that need to be telling stories we've never heard before, and it's okay that we've never heard them. I'm
just kind of thinking, are we going to have like a third Star Trek timeline? Like when JJ decided that he had to like make up a timeline because he didn't want to piss anybody off, because we know that's what happened. He was like, oh yeah, no, it's not the Prime timeline, it's the Kelvin timeline. I'm just going to do that because they screwed up and blew up Vulcan and everybody's pissed. So is it going to be like is it the Burnham timeline just to like...
I mean, arguably, because of the visual discontinuity, we are in the Burnham timeline. None of this looks the way it looks.
Yes.
So, I don't know, man. I'm just like, I need the Orville back. I don't know about you guys, but I am looking forward to the fact that there is 2 more episodes of Discovery left, and we've also got some Orville coming down the pipe. So, next week we have Discovery to talk about for sure. I don't know if the Orville's back, but by next week we will know. And so next week we'll be talking Star Trek, maybe also the Orville, and we'll see you then.